There are many famous names in U.S. Senate history. One of those names is Blanche Kelso Bruce. Blanche Kelso Bruce was responsible for a number of achievements. Now let's do his backstory. You back up, he was educated at a school named Oberlin College. So the president of that college was a man named Charles Finney, who is probably the greatest voice in the Second Great Awakening. Oberlin College was the first college in America to treat blacks and whites, men and women equally. So Blanche Kelso Bruce goes through college there. He is in Mississippi. In Reconstruction in Mississippi, he becomes a Republican, helps found the Republican Party in Mississippi. He's elected as the first black senator to have a full term. The first black senator was Hiram Rhodes Rebels, but he was just there for a year or so. Blanche Kelso Bruce comes in and has a full term as a U.S. Senator from Mississippi, and he's the first black man to preside over the U.S. Senate. He also has another notable distinction in that he's the first black man to be nominated for Vice President of the United States. Back in those days, the parties chose their candidates for President and Vice President, and so they had nominating conventions. And at the Republican Convention of 1880, they nominated James G. Blaine for president. They nominated Blanche Kelso Bruce for vice president. So a black and white ticket for president and vice president. That's not the ticket that won the convention. It was the ticket of James A. Garfield and Chester Arthur that won the convention. James A. Garfield is an interesting story by himself because he was a gospel minister himself. Before he became president, and he was a great hero in the Civil War, he was a general in the Civil War. Abraham Lincoln said, hey, I need you off the battlefield, I gotta have help in Congress. So he came back to Congress, helped pass a whole lot of civil rights measures in Congress. And so he's also nominated for president, and that's who the convention chose. Actually, I have a letter from James A. Garfield, and in this letter he recounts that he had finished preaching a revival service where he preached the gospel 19 times. He said that 34 folks came to Christ and he baptized 31 of them by immersion. Now that's kind of wild today to think of a U.S. president that actually had a revival meeting. And so this is the guy, he became president of the United States. He was a minister in the Second Great Awakening. But he was a good friend with Blanche Kelso Bruce. And so when Garfield became president, he took Blanche Kelso Bruce and made him the registrar of the Treasury. Now, that doesn't sound significant, except it results in you get to be the guy who signs currency. Now this is currency from 1880. It has B.K. Bruce, Blanche Kelso Bruce. He becomes the first black man to have his name appear on any kind of currency. So B.K. Bruce serves under James A. Garfield. But years later, when William McKinley became president, he reappointed Bruce to that same position. And for the second time, currency came out. All the American currency had B.K. Bruce in it. And by the way, you find that Bruce is associated with all these Christian guys. He went to a Christian college. He's with a Christian President James A. Garfield. And President William McKinley, also openly Christian. He was noted that in the White House, at nights, they would close with having friends over and read the Bible for 2 to 3 hours and having what they called hymn sings. Quite a different image from what we think of with the White House in recent years, but this is the way that we had the White House in early years, and Blanche Kelso Bruce was a big part of our history.